Ladies and gentlemen, there will be a safety protocol announcement from Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center in the form of video.
Welcome to Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center, BNDCC. Your safety is always our first priority. It is essential that you are familiar with our emergency procedures in order to respond appropriately during an emergency. When you enter the building, pay attention to the nearest exit doors, emergency stairs, and fire extinguishers. Please take a few moments now to locate your nearest exit. In the event of an emergency such as fire, earthquake, bomb explosion, or tsunami is announced over the public address system, or an emergency alarm is sounded, please remain calm and listen to the announcement. Please follow the evacuation routes and follow the instructions given by Emergency Response Team, ERT personnel. If we are required to evacuate the building, please proceed calmly to the nearest safe exit and follow closely the instructions of ERT personnel to the assembly points.
Please do not use the elevator. Use the nearest emergency stairs according to the evacuation route signs. If you require first aid, please do not hesitate to ask one of our ERT personnel. Thank you for your attention. Best wishes for an eventful day at BNDCC.
Honorable distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? Our program is about to start. Would you please so kindly to remain your any communication tools in a silent mode? Thank you. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, salam sejahtera, salam kebajikan. Good morning. A very warm greeting to each and every one of you. Welcome to Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center. I am Nengah Dwi Handayani. On behalf of the organizing committee, would like to extend our appreciation for your online and offline participation. His Excellencies, Minister of Agrarian Affairs and Special Planning, National Land Agency, represented by Director General of Special Planning, Bapak Insinyur Gabriel Triwibawa MNSC, Excellencies, Governor of Bali Province, represented by Head of Education, Youth and Sports Office of Bali Province, Bapak Dr. Andes Ketut Ngurah Boy Jaya Wibowo MSI, Honorable the President of Global Planning Education Association Network, Professor Eduardo Alberto Chusenobe, PhD, the President of Asian Planning School Association, Professor Yang Sang Lee, the President of Indonesian Planning School Association, Professor Iwan Rudiarto, the President of Association of Collegiate Schools of Planning, Professor Laksmi Ramasubramanian, PhD, President of European School of Planning, Professor Maros Vinca, PhD, President of Latin America Association of Schools and Urbanism and Planning, Associate Professor Magdalena Vicuna, PhD, President of National Association of Postgraduate and Research in Urban and Regional Planning, Associate Professor Camila De Otariano, PhD, President of Australia and New Zealand Association of Planning Schools, Gabriela Quintana Virgiola, PhD, the President of Association for the Promotion of Teaching and Research in Urban Planning and Development, Professor Marco Kremas, PhD, President of Association and Planning Schools of Turkey, Professor Dr. Arsu Bazaram Fisal, the President of Association of African Planning Schools, the President of Canadian University Planning Program, honorable keynote speakers, moderators, presenters, participants, and our partnerships sponsors. First of all, let's express our sincere gratitude to the Almighty God. Because of His blessing, we could gather here to join the 5th World Planning School Congress and the 16th Asian Planning School Association Congress today, August 30, 2022, with the theme, Planning a Global Village, Inclusion, Innovation, and Disruption. There are a series of events that has been done since August 22nd, and there will be an upcoming activities as a part of our Congress. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to request all rise because we would like to commence our program by singing National Anthem of the Republic of Indonesia. And kindly be seated. As our welcome greetings, we would like to present a traditional Balinese welcome dance. Please welcome Tari Sekar Jagat performed by students of Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let's start our program by welcoming the President of Indonesian Planning School Association to deliver his welcoming report. Professor Iwan Rudiarto, please proceed.
Oh, okay. Good morning. That was a very nice dancing. Yeah, thank you very much to our EO here and also to the hotel. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear honorable guests and participants, I would like to welcome all of you to the 5th World Planning School Congress and the 16th Asian Planning School Association Congress 2022, which is taking place here in Bali, Indonesia. You know, 20 years ago, it was in July 2001, the first World Planning School Congress was held in Shanghai, China, organized by Apsa, ACSP, ISOF, and ANSAPS, where Bruce, I think you are the first person at the time who organized this thing, yeah? Thank you for your coming here, yeah? This year is marked as the year of 2 decades of the Wpsc, which is very remarkable, and today we recreate this story by convening a joint Congress on International Planning Schools. We are honored to have the opportunity for conducting this global event. This Congress is organized by Indonesian Planning School Association, so I would like to thank to our colleague from ASPI. I think most of the members are also here. In cooperation with Global Planning Education Association Network, I would like to thank to Eduardo and also the committee as well, and the Asian Planning School Association, where Professor Lee and other Apsa members also here. Therefore, Wpsc Apsa Congress is an important global event on planning schools to exchange ideas as the course of action to meet many challenges in planning. And for this event, we have decided carefully to choose the Congress theme, Planning in a Global Village, Inclusion, Innovation, and Disruption, as you can see here on our big, huge background here, yeah? Just to inform you that we are very delighted to announce that we have more than 810 participants from 84 countries, representatives of academics, urban planners, students, governments, international and national agencies have decided to be a part of this Congress in 2022. Due to post-pandemic, we are adapting to a new normal situation which encouraged us to set this Congress as a hybrid event. From those 810 participants, as much as 415 participants, or more or less 50%, are joining with us here in Bali, Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center. And another 50% are joining us virtually. Yeah? So I would like to thank to all of the participants for your participation. We aim that this Congress become a productive platform among planning education institutions to collaborate. The Wpsc Apsa Joint Congress organizes a series of events. Just to report to you, we have a pre-Congress event, the Congress itself, and a post-Congress events. Pre-Congress events consist of international PhD colloquium that we have done yesterday, as well as the Global Planning Studio and the International Student Competition and Global Planning Student Meetings, which I think it was very successful event as well. And Congress event consists of a plenary and parallel session that will involve not less than 130 sessions of abstract presentation, and special sessions. And of course, GPN and Apsa council meeting. Post-Congress event is the mobile workshop, which we encourage you to enjoy Bali from the perspective of our Congress team in Global Village. Yeah. So for the mobile workshop, we will have it on the 2nd September after the Congress. On behalf of the local committee, I would like to thank the GPN and Apsa, our close partner also, the Ministry of Agrarian Affairs and Spatial Planning, which is unfortunately the ministry is not able to come here, but we have also the representative from Pak Gabriel as the Director General of Spatial Planning. And also from Bali Provincial Government, so which is unfortunately also that the governor cannot come himself, but we have also the representative from the head of the education, sport, and culture, I suppose, yeah.
and efforts to organize the Congress and all the participants who come to Bali. Let me express my heartfelt to Professor Dr. Iwan Rudiarto from Indonesian Planning Schools Association and his team for the tremendous work in hosting in Congress. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, today here in Bali, it is a remarkable moment to all of us, not only to celebrate 2 decades of global planning education associations, but more importantly, to seek more productive collaboration among planning education institutions globally, and for all of us to recognize how critical our work now, so that we need mutual commitment to find best solution for our better future. Through the theme, Planning a Global Village, Inclusion, Innovation and Disruption, here we discuss together all important issues and challenges for planning our world. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of the fact, our planet, as supply-side FU's economic term, is limited, and our population and activities as demand side are principally unlimited. Population growth drives urbanization. The world is undergoing the largest wave of urban growth in history. More than half of the world's population now lives in towns and cities, and by 2030, this number will increase to 5 billion people. And 95% of urban expansion in the next decades will take place in the developing world. Rapid urbanization will exert pressure on land conversion, fresh water supplies, urban infrastructures, disaster and climate risks, and the living environment. Well-planned urban development is very important for Indonesia because 56.4% of Indonesia's population lives in urban areas in 2020 and is projected to increase to 67.1% in 2045, or at about 63.8 million inhabitants. This means that urban development is the main driver of future economic growth and social transformation. We must be able to obtain optimal benefits from the urbanization process, and one of the strategic foundations will be high-quality spatial planning. We are living in the same globe, our globe village, our boat, our common home. The COVID-19 crisis has impacted civilization and economies around the globe and will permanently remove our globe. At the same time, especially during these 2 to 3 years of the coronavirus pandemic, we, humankind, realize how globally connected we are. Also, how we have been depending on technology unprecedentedly to adapt our lifestyle during the pandemic and post-pandemic. Keeping those considerations in mind, urban spatial planning is crucial to create a safe, livable, productive, and sustainable world as the Sustainable Development Goals objectives. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia, as one of the largest population countries, we understand that to achieve Sustainable Development Goals and to make a better future, we must transform the way we live, we work, and develop our cities. One of the manifestations to this commitment is to develop of Indonesia new capital city in Kalimantan. Nusantara Capital, or IKN, will be developed as world-class city for all and manifestation of our common home. With three ultimate visions: firstly, as world's most sustainable city; secondly, as new economic engine for Indonesia; and thirdly, as national identity symbols. To achieve the three missions, several aspects may be concerned. First, as the world's most sustainable city, Nusantara Capital City should be safe and affordable, has net zero emission, be in harmony with nature, and circular and resilient, and also connected, active, and accessible. Secondly, as a new economic engine for Indonesia, Nusantara Capital should be able to robust economy opportunity for all, as well as convenience and efficient through technology. Thirdly, as a national identity symbol, Nusantara Capital should be unity in diversity. With the population target in 2045 around 1.7 million to 1.9 million, Nusantara Capital is developed as more than just a new capital city in Indonesia. It will be developed amid climate concerns. The mission is to be a city that sets new standards and ambitions for all future cities on several dimensions, including environmental sustainability. As a common home for all, the Nusantara Capital structure will be defined by relationship between people, place, and planet. To achieve those visions, urban space and planning regulation become foundation policies in developing Nusantara Capital. Two kinds of spatial planning regulation are used to develop Nusantara Capital. The first is spatial plan for national strategic area of IKN, which is enacted by Presidential Decree number 64 the year of 2022, and detailed the spatial plan of IKN that will be enacted by Head of Capital Authority Regulation. Both regulations play important roles to guide environment, investment policies, integrated development program, and environmental preservation and management. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, realizing the importance of urban and regional planning, regional spatial planning, I emphasize that those plans and implementation will not work without highly qualified human resources. To overcome problems and challenges in spatial planning, we need spatial planners with bright and futuristic ideas, brilliant thinking, high professionalism, and with global competitiveness. It is needed a great challenge for Planning Schools Association to fulfill human resources needs in spatial planning and contribute to achieving sustainable development goals. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, although we are still conducting this Congress in hybrid term, I am confident this Congress will continue to serve a critical platform for us to generate collaborative ideas and programmatic initiatives. It will be a great opportunity for ASEAN Planning School Association and Indonesia Planning School Association especially to create smart strategy for planning, for spatial planning, and also to enrich the quality of human resources in spatial planning. With those points in mind, I declare the 5th World Planning Congress and 16th Asian Planning Schools Association Congress 2022 officially opened. I wish you all as inspiring Congress, productive and fruitful discussion during the agenda. And at last but not least, don't forget to enjoy Bali. Thank you very much. Matur nuwun. Terima kasih. The Minister of Agrarian Affairs and Spatial Planning, Head of National Land Agency, Hadi Cahyanto. Terima kasih.
Excellencies, Mr. Director General, would you please so kindly to remain on the stage? We would like to continue to officially open this event by beating the gong. And we would like to invite also the President of Japan, Apsa, and ASPI, and also Honorable the Governor of Bali Province to be on the stage. We are going to continue to pemukulan gong. All right, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our Congress is officially opened by the Minister of Agrarian Affairs and Spatial Planning, National Land Agency of the Republic of Indonesia, represented by our Director General. Would you please so kindly to be on the stage also to have a photo session all together? Mohon ke tengah, Bapak. Thank you, and kindly be seated. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that's all our opening ceremony of this Congress. We would like to apologize for any mistakes and obstacles during our opening ceremony. We are going to continue our program with having a coffee break for about 15 minutes. And we will start the next agenda at 10:20. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, welcome to the 5th World Planning School Congress and also the 16th Asian Planning School Association Congress 2022 here in Bali, Nusa Dua Convention Center. I'm Dimas Bayu Anindito and I will live report the overall event and then I will interview several participants and also the committee and also the invited and distinguished speakers here, and we will get back to you soon. We are here now is having a coffee break and I will also interview several of them. So please stay tuned and see you soon. Yeah. Hello, welcome back to the 5th World Planning School Congress and the 16th Asian Planning School Association Congress 2022. I'm here now, live reporting from Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center, and we will go like first sneaking peek to the overall venue. So yeah, up here we have the registration booth. So first, when the participants come, they can go to the registration booth and also like register and get the like the badges and also the overall goodie bag here. And then we have several also sponsors who like attending here and also opening booths. Maybe we can ask several participants of this study. Sorry, for this event. Yeah, let's see. Hi, excuse me. Do you mind if I interview like for the live report of the Wpsc? Yeah. Hello, sir. Yeah, could you please introduce your name?
Nihal Pereira
Okay, so where do you come from?
from the United States.
So which role do you have here in the Congress?
I'm just participating. Yeah.
So you are, which session do you plan to attend?
I haven't really decided on any of the sessions.
Yeah.
My interest is in how people create their own spaces. So any of the sessions that are along those lines, I will actually try to participate.
So placemaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting session. So we do hope that you will enjoy overall conference. And also like there are several many tracks regarding the placemaking. So we hope you also enjoy Bali.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we are proceeding into another participants, let's say. Hi, do you mind if I interview you for the live report? Yeah, okay. So could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Reva Marathe. I'm a PhD student at the University of Melbourne.
So which role do you have here in the Congress?
I'm presenting tomorrow. Yeah.
So could you please elaborate around your project?
So I study the use of digital technology in feminist advocacy, looking at applications that are used to address violence against women in cities. And I'm here to share some of the key findings of my research about how an organization called SafeTip has been using digital technology and a suite of digital tools to do advocacy work in Delhi.
Okay, I think that's a really interesting project. So yeah, we really look forward to your presenting, and then please, we do hope that you also enjoy Bali because it's really nice weather here. So yeah, we do hope that you enjoy overall.
Thank you.
Thank you so much and see you. Yeah. Okay, so now we can move into another participants, I think. So yeah, we have a coffee break, and then people are queuing on the coffee break stands. And maybe we can ask like these people around here. So good morning, sir. I'm here now with live reporting the Congress. Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you, Mas Dimas. My name is Anang from the University. You can call me Anang. This is an excellent congress, excellent conference. As you know, with 94 countries and more than 15, 500 participants. So this is so grateful conference here, and so very proud and very happy to be here and join this conference, and also meet my graduate of my promoter, my supervisor, and also my colleagues from every country in the world. So we can discuss everything about planning and education for planning. So this is so good for me. Thank you.
Pak Anang, which role do you have here in the Congress? Are you presenting?
No, my student, my best student, stay here to research about how urban Shannon entropy modeling for urban and regional expansion. So that's the interesting topic.
So let's cross our fingers and hope that your student will like successfully completing their presentation.
Success for Dimas to present in the tomorrow morning, and hopefully success also for this conference.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Anang, for your time. Enjoy the event. Yeah. All right. So we are moving into which one? This one? Okay. Hi. I'm currently now live reporting the overall event. We will ask you your time about to like introduce yourself and then like which role do you have here in the event. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello to everybody. My name is Kai Benjamini. I am from Chile. I am presenting a paper tomorrow. And I am a member of Latin American Association of Urban Planning. I am representing to this association.
Could you please elaborate more about your presentation, like the sneak peek around your presentation?
Tomorrow I present applied research in university studies of the the teaching of urban sustainability and how we teach urban sustainability and making the difference in the process of teaching, not to the traditional cátedra, applying different methodologies like active learning. Active learning have, for example, do workshop, field work, and other stuff to understand better the urban sustainability things.
I think it's a really complex yet very interesting project. So we will look forward to your presentation, and also we hope that you also enjoy Bali. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And this is magnificent place, Bali, and I am enchanted. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good morning. So after this, there are several booths here. So first of all, I think this is from the Department of Architecture and Planning, from the Faculty of Engineering Gajah Mada University. And then on the next booth, we have the Department of Urban and Regional Planning from Diponegoro University. And next to it, I think it's from the Journal of Indonesia Sustainable Development Planning. So I think the journal can also like open the booth here. Maybe we can ask also several members of the Journal of Indonesia Sustainable Development. So we are now here reporting live for the event. Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you. My name is Lukman Saputro. I'm from, as you can see, from JSDP, Journal of Indonesia Sustainable Development Planning. So we are from Ministry of National Development Planning, and therefore our scope of journal is for anything about sustainable development, not only in Indonesia but also in the whole world as well. So therefore we accept any submission regarding sustainable development, such as research paper, policy paper, commentary, and also book review, as long as it's related to sustainable development.
I think this journal is one of the emerging journal, like established by the Ministry of National Development Planning of Republic of Indonesia. So please, if you want to like submit any your research articles, research papers, you can also like consider this journal as your choice. So thank you so much, Pak, for your time, and we do hope that people that will submit their proposal or maybe research article.
Sure, our doors are open for new writers especially. So we also accept any submission within the scope. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning, sir. Yeah, you too. Now we are proceeding into the next booth, I think. So here we have the like the booth for the sixth Panel Cosmo from Bandung Institute of Technology. Maybe you can also introduce us. Could you please introduce your name?
Well, thank you. My name is Rohis. I'm is one of this booth part, especially in Panel Cosmo from ITB Bandung. So, in this elaborate of deliberation, we contemplate some paper exhibition and also conference to join with this event. So there is some program that you can find and examine from our program schools, especially in urban and planning, as one of the planning school in Indonesia. Thank you.
So there are booths from the Plano Cosmo, and it is actually a session. They actually conduct a session here, and participants are managed by the committee of the sixth Plano Cosmo. Okay, now we are on to the other side of the room. There are like just beside the registration booth. There are also the booth for the payment. So people can just like go, and if they haven't paid the conference fee, they can also go straight here. And then the coffee break is not finished yet, so we can ask for another interview here. So there are a lot of people coming here, and this conference is hybrid actually. So basically, there are people here enjoying the Bali weather, and also the beaches around the venue here in Bali, Nusa Dua Convention Center. And now here we are approaching the booth of informal services in Asian cities from the AAD. Hello, good morning. Could we interview a bit about your booth, please? Okay. So we can proceed to we can just interview you. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mia. So I'm attending this congress as a part of National University of Singapore, and I'm happy to see many scholars like from the whole from the world. So I'm looking forward to see especially Saskia Sassen as one of the.
Our next agenda. Thank you. and visiting professor at University College Dublin. She received PhD degree from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She has published extensively in books and peer-reviewed journals. She currently serves as the ESOP ACSP liaison, chair of the ESOP Best Congress Paper Award, and also she is a member of APA Education Committee. She is one of the co-chairs of this 5th World Planning School Congress 2022. Honorable Professor Sarija, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Technology in order, I can be heard. Good morning, everyone who is here in person. Yeah, like this. Maybe I need somebody to turn something on. I have a mic here, so the other one.
Okay, would you please so kindly to wait, our IT?
Yes. This one is on. No? Okay, is this now working? Good morning, good afternoon and evening, everyone. Good morning for those who are here and the rest of the world, different time zones. We're happy for everybody to join wherever you are. Honored participants, virtual and in person, organizers and dear guests, it is my pleasure and honor to moderate this keynote session. First, as a member of this Congress Steering Committee, I would like to join in extending my commends and gratitude to Indonesian government and institutions that provided support to this important event, and to colleagues from Indonesia and countries around the world for their effort to provide us with this opportunity to meet and continue discussions and work that were significantly disrupted during the pandemic. Indeed, disruption is one of the words that the Congress organizers included in the theme, Planning a Global Village, Inclusion, Innovation, and Disruption, as they call for deconstructing and contextualizing, or rather, or perhaps recontextualizing space, time, and culture. So here I would like briefly to remind us of the ideas that were articulated by our Indonesian colleagues and that set this Congress in motion. Just a few points that they brought up as they applied to the Congress and wanted us to take on this idea. First, there are various types of disruptions, pandemics, wars, floods, but also some of them are created by innovations. So innovations are disruptions as well. By their nature, these disruptions challenge the traditional notion of planning, and I will not elaborate on what we mean by that at this point, but they also affect life at all scales, from individual to community, city, regional, and up to global. They also affect planning and design, which is our part of the world activity and business. The organizer charged us to adopt disruptive innovation along with inclusivity and global interconnectivity enabled by digital communications and media as cornerstones in current academic discourses. Calling for new approaches in observing, critiquing, analyzing, and addressing our contemporary issues. They suggest that the disruptive innovation and inclusion have a capacity to co-opt various actors and institutions in disseminating certain social, economic, and cultural values. Innovation politics are often systematically and systemically embedded in the structures of power relations. With these underlying ideas, we can relate to a variety of planning topics and issues and to the evolving nature of globalization and the ways it stimulates creative disruption and inclusion in planning and design. So this is, again, a variety of topics and themes that are presenting and submitted as abstracts first, and then will be presenting during the conference. In this context, space and built environment are also forms of disruptive innovation and require a historical view and cultural view. Meanwhile, planning and design could be a form or considered as a form of resistance against the commodification process diffused across space and social groups. So we are asked many questions, and I hope we think of more questions and more ways to address those questions as we are here at the conference and also at this particular keynote. What are the roles of space, time, and culture in this global village in the era of inclusion and disruption? How can planning and planners comprehend and conceive this unprecedented era? Can planning still be able to provide a useful course toward the future of our global village? So these were just some of the questions that our organizers, local, have put in our minds to set up our intellectual endeavor during the Congress. So now I would like to give the floor to our distinguished guests. The two keynotes are Anthony Ye from University of Hong Kong and Professor Saskia Sassen from Columbia University. For the second keynote, I'd like to just alert everyone that there's some personal health issues, so we're still a little bit on a standby with Professor Sassen. There will be 4 panelists who will come to the floor after Professor Ye's presentation. That's Michele Campagna from University of Cagliari, Angelique Chettiparba, University of Reading, Vivandari Handayani, University of Diponegoro, and Yang Sang Lee from Seoul National University. They will be called later. So first, about the first keynote, who takes on the technological lens to the Congress theme. Professor Anthony Ye will talk about smart city and urban development. I'd like to tell just a few words about him, although we could probably spend the whole keynote with his achievements and successes. So Professor Anthony is a member of Chinese Academy of Sciences and Hong Kong Academy of Sciences, and a fellow of the World Academy of Sciences and the Academy of Social Sciences, United Kingdom. He is Chan To-han Professor in Urban Planning and Design and Chair Professor of Department of Urban Planning and Design and Director of GIS Research Center at the University of Hong Kong, where he carried many other leadership roles. His main areas of expertise are the applications of geographic information systems as planning and management support tools for smart cities and urban development and planning in Hong Kong, China, and Southeast Asia. He received the UN Habitat Lecture Award in 2008 and Dr. Gilchin Lim Global Award in 2012 for his outstanding and sustained contribution to research thinking and practice in human settlement development. He has published over 30 books and monographs and over 180 international journal papers and book chapters. He has been founding Secretary General of the Asian Planning Schools Association and Asia GIS Association, founding President of the Hong Kong GIS Association, Chairman of the Hong Kong Geographical Association, Vice President of the Commonwealth Association of Planners, Vice President of the Hong Kong Institute of Planners, and Chairman of the Geographic Information Science Commission of the International Geographic Union. Please welcome, along with me, Professor Ye for his keynote.
Hi, Professor Nidovic, thank you very much for your very kind introductions. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry that I'm not able to be with you because of the COVID-19 of the quarantine system in Hong Kong. I think I missed a very good Congress. I still remember 20 years ago when we organized the World Planning School Congress, the first one in 2001 in Shanghai, together with Professor Louis Albrecht, as well as Stephen Hamnet as the steering committee. And also, this was very successfully organized by Professor Jichang Wu of the Tongji University. And this is how it all got started. But I'm sorry that I have to miss this very exciting time. But anyway, in the last 20 years, as Professor Lidovik has been saying, well, we have a lot of changes, right? And today I would like to talk about one of these type of innovations and all of the type of changes. The word actually 20 is very different from 20 years ago. And we have to look forward to what's going to happen, right? And so what we are going to talk about will be about the smart cities and how it affects urban development. Well, let's look at a very quick history about the smart city itself, right? And you will find that basically it is along there existing since 2007, and then a lot of places going on, right? And so what happened is that basically we are talking about the smart cities will be actually with us already, right? And everybody is planning for smart, sustainable green cities. So this is the, the way forward, right? So let's talk about what is the definition of smart cities. It's just like the definitions of sustainable cities. There are so many definitions, but the one that I like most was the one used in Europe in 2007. Basically, smart cities is everything. You talk about smart people, smart mobility, smart economy, smart environment, smart living, and smart governance, right? So it's everywhere, right? And let's look at the history. And actually, it does not really come in nowhere. I think it can start as early as 1985 when we have the computers and local area network. In that case, we are able to develop what is known as digital cities. But most of these are basically used in the government office, right? Because other people cannot access it. But in 1995, then we have the internet and with all the sensors, and then people talk about intelligent cities. Now, at this first time, you can use internet in the office and the home, right? So this is so not only government and firms are using it, people are using it. And then the major transformations going on, I think will be just like 10 years ago, right? Where we have the smartphones with sensors, Wi-Fi, IoT, etc. And we have the smart cities. And now it can be anytime, anywhere, people can be using it. The backbone of this whole thing will be GIS, ICT, sensors, and Wi-Fi. Well, so this is the history. But what will be the smart city for the future? We are still in the beginning. We are now talking about BIM, we're talking about 5G, IoT, artificial intelligence, and autonomous vehicle. And this is going to really transform and disrupt the society, right? Now, so one of these very fundamental things is that smart cities have to be driven by smart technologies. And so smart technologies, we'll talk about data collections, information processing, service providing. And basically, what are we talking about, right? They have to be automatic, real-time, data mining, self-learning, easy to use. But these are all these type of scientific development. But will we be able to use these type of smart technologies? It all depends on whether it's affordable and also politically acceptable. We'll later elaborate more on it, right? So the technology is there, whether we are going to use it or not, this is something up to the society. Now, so in the sensors and also informations is really the heart of the smart cities. Without them, just like human beings, without our eyes, without our ears, without our nose, we do not know what's going on, right? And so the sensors are very important. There are different types of sensors. Actually, sensors everywhere. I don't want to go into details because I think we are now experiencing this every day. But the application is tremendous. It's just up to your imagination. Now, let me just go through very quickly with you what are the type of applications we are talking about, what type of sensors we are talking about, before we talk about how it can be used in urban planning, and later we'll talk about the impacts of this type of transformations that's going on in terms of our society, in terms of urban development. Okay, now, so this is the smart mobility. I think everybody is using it every day. I think even for our overseas participants going to Bali, you need to use this to find your way through, right? And so basically, it is supported by global navigation satellite system with GPS, with Galileo, all sorts of different type of satellites, right? And then you have the receivers. And in the old days, then you have this so-called navigator, but now you don't need it. You can just have your own mobile phone, right? So this is the type of changes that is going on, right? Another thing that we are going to talk about sensors, it can be now smart street lamps, right? A lot of places like Singapore is also developing the smart street lamps, not only giving you lights, but also giving you positions and things like that, right? And so these are all these type of advanced development that is going on. And also even car camera, right? Everybody is now, a lot of people are using it, and in that case, this can also become one of the sensor. Well, obviously, by 2030, which is not too far away, we are also talking about autonomous vehicles, shared vehicles, even robots, right? And they all have a lot of sensors, like GPS, LiDAR, video camera, and they're collecting information on the road every day, right? And so, or actually every second, right? And so these are all these type of development in terms of sensor development. And we also have this 5G positioning, making it to be, transmission of the data is much faster than before, right? Right, so in terms of applications, many smart health, you have a wearable, this type of IoT, smart home and living, right? You have all of different sensors, CCTV, opening of the door and things like that. Smart environment, obviously, you can monitor air quality and water quality very inexpensively. And more importantly, the smart green building, and we can have this type of low carbon type of development, right? So these are all the things, applications. Right? Also with mobile phone data, with smart card data, we can support this type of also smart business, smart shopping, right? So particularly in the COVID-19 period, right? A lot of people are using it to do the transactions, increasingly more, right? Okay, and also we can have smart parking, smart waste management, smart energy, smart flood control. So you can see it's all over the place, right? Okay, now obviously the smart technology can also help us to control the COVID-19, like this thermal scanner. In China, in particular, they are using this health code system so that you can see who got this type of patients and who are the contacts, and so you have tried to monitor and also try to control the COVID-19, right? Now, one very important sensor that nowadays we are happening is not only by hardware, it's by human being, right? This is an example. For example, in London, you will see that you are able to find a lot of, in terms of maybe I'll try to show you, right? So you can see in London, right? So you can see a lot of this type of, traffic congestion, right? Okay. But how can they know it, actually? It's because a lot of people are using the phone, and the information actually get back to the server. In that case, they were able to know it. And basically, human being now become the sensor, right? So this is also another very typical example, what I call the public-private people partnership, the 4 Ps, right? So the public is the government that provide all the base maps of the data, and the private sector will give you the server and also giving you the app, and the people will be basically, supplying them the data, right? And this is also one way is increasingly being used. And actually, the company, Google Map or the Google Map in China, well, they are selling all this type of data back to the government because they have all the transfer information, right? And so you can see how things is going nowadays, right? So the cloud sourcing is a very, very important component now in terms of sensor. And also now with the development of smart technology, you have the building information modeling from the design and the build, and then you actually have to, operate. But in the operation side, you can now also have to use it for management. Right? So this is the building information modeling system that are happening. And basically now we are talking about a BIM, which is a building, and then we can have a district information system called a DIM, and eventually we have the SIM. So this is a little bit like the virtual city, right? Which in the past is difficult to build, but now it's possible because of this new technology. And what will happen, right? So, and the way that we look at cities now will be very different. In the old days, we only have a 2D GIS, and now we have a 3D GIS because of the beam, and also the integrations of it will actually give you virtual reality. In the future, when you are looking at a city from the phone, you can use the augmented reality, and you can get all sorts of information outdoor and as well as indoor. So it will actually changing our way of looking into cities itself. Now, when we are talking about all these sensors, what does it do? Actually, it will actually give us a lot of new data sources. In the old days, when we're doing planning, we are talking about census data, remote sensing data, and most credit card data. But now, with all these type of sensors, it's generating a lot of new data sources, which we call the new big data, like the spatial temporal data, with the GPS, with the mobile phone data, smart card, etc. You can also have a car sensor, Internet of Things, social network, even Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, also web data, text data, etc. Right? But this actually is developing a new field called urban informatics, and we need to have a lot of urban analytics to process and analyze this type of data. And so that comes to the applications of what is known as artificial intelligence, right? Using knowledge-based intelligence system or artificial life, like agent-based modeling, or intelligent optimization process, or even machine learning, like the deep learning, etc. Right? So basically, you need to analyze the data in order for you to support this type of smart enterprises, right? Like fintech, smart logistics, smart decision, etc. Right? But what is the impact apart from this type of smart enterprises? Is basically now we are having what is known as a platform economy, right? And we have a lot of people. Although you say that, well, the smart cities may displace some of the workers, but in fact, they are creating more jobs or creating jobs for other people, right? Just like in the COVID-19 time, we can basically have good and food delivery. And also we do internet shopping. We have this KOL as a new way of making money. And also we can have share rides, we can have Uber, and we can have all sorts of different type of car sharing, right? And this lead rise to what is known as the gig economy, right? And also share economy, and we can share maybe a flat, share office, and things like that, right? So this is actually now happening, right? Now, so let's look into what is the innovation that we are having, particularly when it affects planning, right? So in terms of the smart city and also smart technologies, it is going to give us the data support, helping us to make decision, particularly through modeling, and design support, implementation support, and management support, which I will go into a little bit detail here, right? So let's talk about the planning support first, right? And this is the traditional, what is known as the type of 4-stage planning: trip generation, trip distribution, modal split, and trip assignment. Now, in the old days, in order to have this type of model, you really have to do a census, like a transport census. But nowadays, with the mobile phone data, you're able to check, where is the origin of the people, where do they stay, maybe during the, from 12 midnight to 6 a.m., where do they stay? So this is the trip generations, where are they, living, right? And also, where do they go for the work? And you can also map them, and if they stay in a very long period in a certain type of places, probably is working, right? So we can go the OT trip. And with the taxi data, with the transit smart data, we can able to do the modal split. And so, more or less, if you like, in the old days, we may able to do this type of land use transfer model once every maybe 5 years. And now we can do it more or less every day, right? So this is a very big improvement in terms of our in the field of urban planning. And also, just like what Professor Michael Barry has been advocating since 2012, we can do a lot of smart cities modeling, like modeling traffic behavior, land use transport, market transactions, urban supply chains, etc., to save energy, right, for more sustainable development. Right? And so this is make possible because we have all this type of data and also as well as the technique itself. And for urban smart designer with the BIM supported design method, you are able to do more precise, not only looking into the appearance, but looking into, okay, what happened if we do different designs in terms of energy, in terms of the costing, etc., visualization, etc. Right? So there's a lot of applications going on. And another way is through public participation, right? And so you can able to tell people through the internet, just like now we are having these online discussions. People don't need to go to the planning department to look at the plan. They can all do it. And this is an example. They do it in Wuhan in 2015. It's using a web-based as well as a mobile phone-based type of public participation, so people can send feedback, right? And the another very important one is about crowdsourcing, right? Participation in urban management. Right, and so this is an example. I'm sorry, this is in Chinese, right? But this is phone applications in Zhuhai in southern China, and so you can basically take a photo of the problem that you're facing, like illegal parking or and then or some sort of a garbage, and then you can send it to the center, and they will try to tell you, right, maybe within say 7 days after being cleaned, it will send it back to you, right? And so this is the type of things that is happening to make us, everybody now becoming the sensor and also trying to monitor the urban environment, and in case anything goes wrong. And this cannot be happened without this type of new technology. And another very important thing in urban management is what we call digital twin cities, right? And so in the old days, we have this physical real city, right? And increasingly, we have this digital cyber city, urban model, digital GIS, BIM, etc. But they are not connected. And so now with all the sensors, we can able to look into the traffic, environment information and predictions, and also talking about the building facilities, like the road, whether it is broken, damaged or not. And then you send it back to this model. And this model will do AI operation and management system, and actually it will feed back to the management side so that they can do the repair and do some sort of different types of arrangement because of these interactions between the physical real city using the sensor and send it over to the digital cyber city, and then we can have these digital twin cities. And this will be one of the mainstream in terms of urban management. Now, let's look into how this type of new technology affects us, particularly urban planning and development, right? Now, so this is what I start with, right? So this is technology driven, right? Basically, we will not be able to have smart cities without the smartphone, without the 5G, now without the artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicle. But what happened, right? So I think as a student of urbanism, right, or urban planning, obviously we are very influenced by the work of Louis Wirth in 1938. Urbanism as a way of life, right? I think this is a classic, and how it changed from a rural way of life to an urban way of life. And basically, we talk about people having social pathology and being, somehow living in a city, and they have a relaxed social control compared to the rural. So there is different ways of life. And so what we are talking about, smart city as a new way of life. Well, obviously, you can see we are changing it, particularly in the COVID-19 period. You can work from home, and you can order food from home. You don't even have to go to restaurants, right? You can even learn from home, right? And so this is really changing our way of life. And so this is something that we have to be aware of, whether we like it or not. The technology is there, but how much it affects you, it all depends, on where you are and also the type of applications of smart technology in your city. Okay. Now, so I still remember Manuel Castells, talking about the information society in 1989 when you have the internet, and then later we have the network society in 1996. And so you can see it's still about the impact of technology on society, right? And so nowadays, I think what we need, maybe Professor Manuel Castells will try to update is the impacts of smart societies on us, right? So what is the effect? And actually it's very disruptive as well as, also helping us as well, right? Now, so let's look at how it can be interpreted in urban planning and development. This reminds me of the good work of Professor Stuart Chapin in the University of North Carolina in 1957. He had the first textbooks on urban land use planning. And so basically he proposed or used this paradigm. You have human activities, therefore you have spatial needs, and therefore you can do spatial planning and try to deal with it. But it is only too general, right? So it can be modified, saying that how socio-economic development will affect human activities, right? But not only that, just like in China, right? Like, 30 years ago, it's basically early industrialization. It's now going into a different stage of economic development, right? And so it actually affecting the human behavior, economic activities going on, right? But also the transfer and communications, right? Using ICT, using smart technologies, the needs of this type of human activities will change, right? And also we have different types of planning theory, like sustainable development, etc., right? This is also going to affect us. And so this is how we should see how this smart technology, smart cities affect us, because it's really changing. And so, we cannot expect that urban planning and development will not be affected. But how is it being affected? Okay, now, obviously in planning or spatial planning, urban form have to be, serving certain functions, right? Or certain functions or urban functions will affect urban form. But is it still true with this type of smart technology or smart city development? And this is something that I would like to explore with you. Okay. Now, one of the very most important thing that is going on is home-based shopping, right? We shop from home, right? This is already a lot of people are doing it, right? And particularly in the COVID-19 time, right? We used to be, or some people still resist it, but now because of COVID-19, you don't have any choice. And so the COVID-19 actually has speeded up the whole process of smart city development, right? And so one of the things is, I think, happening in a lot of Western cities is a demand for shopping space, right? Do you still need the big shopping mall? The shopping mall, like in China, they are no longer really selling goods. They are places where people just meet together, eat and dine, and even as a the POPs, right? The public open space, right? Public-private open space. So the shopping mall, because of the heat and also maybe bad weather, they go to the shopping mall for leisure, right? Rather than shopping mall is for selling goods. Most of the things they are shopping around will be powerful, like in America, Amazon.com. In China is the Taobao, right? Okay. And now also we have a home-based work from home, right? And in that case, if you work from home, do you still need so many office space, and where will be the office space, right? I still remember in year 2000, early year 2000s, and a lot when the internet was being developed and the mobile phones, and in London and in a lot of the Western countries, they're talking about whether it can have hot testing, whether we can have this type of work from home, right? And now it becomes a reality because of the COVID-19. So everybody was forced to work from home and doesn't seem to be too much affected by it. Right? So there is now speeding up the whole process of smart city development. But what is the demand for office space? Do we still need to have the CBD? Do we need to have all sorts of things? But obviously, the office space or work from home may not work in high density cities like Asia, right? For example, we have a very small space, right? We may be only having around, 20 square meters per household, right? Or maybe like 200 square feet, right? So, okay, so how can you work from home, right? In that case, probably you may have some decentralized center that people will try to, work nearby their home, right? But do not need to go to the office to work, right? So these are all the changes that is going on. Now, also we have the space-time compressions because of the IT, right? You see, this is, for example, in the old days, if you go to one place to another place, just like these 360 days around the world, right? And there's this novel as well as a movie, right? But nowadays you don't need it, right? So the whole thing is that we now are being, the world is really being compressed, right? And what happened now in Indonesia can just instantly be, I can participate right, instantly, right? This is something that 20 years ago or 30 years ago we can never think of. Now, so what happened is that basically what we talk about a 1 hour commuting trips before is only around this type of distance. But now with 1 hour, with the high-speed train, with a lot of things, probably it will be much larger. But not only about traveling, it's also about communications, right? So in that, because of this, now we are able to support what is known as mega cities or mega city regions. Right? In the old days, probably without this smart city development, we are not able to support it. Right? Now, let's look into also the changes in the society. Now we are talking about from society 1.0 to society 5.0. So in the old days, we have this type of, agrarian society, and then the industrial society, information society, and now we have the super smart society. Right? We are still going into this transformation, and so it will also affect our ways of life, right? And also in industries, we have the Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, which is basically the post-war period. And now we are talking about Industry 4.0, where we have robotics, AI, etc. Right? And it is going to also to transform a lot of production process. And also, more importantly, right, particularly in city development, urban development, it's about Transport 1.0, where you have the horse cart to steam engine, to the type of motor vehicles that we are having, like the GE by Ford, right? And now we are talking about automations, talking about autonomous vehicle, AI, and this is what is happening. And this will be one of the most disruptive technologies that we are experiencing in urban planning. Now, this is like the Transport 4.0. It's really disruptive. Right? We're talking about big data, we're talking about IoT, cloud computing, high-speed train, a lot of autonomous vehicle, right? So what happens? It's basically now because of the autonomous vehicle, we are now talking about vehicle to everything, V2X, right? Vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, vehicle to network. So basically, you know exactly where people are and exactly what the cars are, and then so that you can have a better coordinations, right? Okay, and one of the most important impact is on what is known as mobility as a service. So in the past, that everything you have to go through is through the human being. You to try to figure out how to travel. But now with the MAS, everything can be linked up with a mobile phone. In that case, you can, for example, during the first mile, you can book Uber or some sort of taxis, and then go to the mass transit, and then take the mass transit, and something will be waiting for you, and then you can go to your office, etc. Right? And you can have the share bikes, everything is going on, right? So this is going to really transform, making travel more convenient, and making, you don't even need to have a car, right? I have some friends in America saying that I used to have 2 cars. Now I just need 1 because I can use Uber, right? And so this is one of these very major impact. Now, so in terms of transport management, obviously, because we already know about where the cars are, etc. In that case, you may not need to have the traffic lights, right? And then may be making the street safer and more efficient, right? But this is still something under examination, because you know that even the Tesla and also autonomous vehicle may have accidents, and now we are having a lot of problems with it too, right? Okay, now the other one is, well, because we are using shared vehicles, do we need so many parking space, right? And also maybe with the type of platform economy, with the server system, or you can have a much more efficient use of your parking space. And more importantly, well, in the old days, we can have a park and ride. You don't need to park anymore. You just call and ride, right? And so this also will be saving a lot of land. So in the future, what happened to the car parks, right? Particularly in America, do we need so many car parks in the future? Can we convert the car parks to more green public open space and new street layouts as a consequence of this type of autonomous vehicle and also mobility as a service, right? So this is the things that we have to think about. And also in terms of the urban decentralization or the urban morphology, will it actually maybe having this more polycentric clusters where you have this type of community where people work and also live and have more job housing balance, and basically forming a lot of clusters and later through internet, whatever, trying to link up together with a center, right? So this is some sort of a thing that we have to think about for the future, right? And also urban spatial differentiations, will it be differentiated according to different types of modes of transport? Like for example, this non-restricted travel access and fully restricted access, and also whether we have different types of AV induced, for example, a lot of people saying that it can be like some sort of cluster system, and maybe have a center, and they're all being connected by this autonomous vehicle plus particularly MAS. Okay. Now another thing is about urban green space in AV center society, street Phoenix. Now you see right over here we have a lot of particularly in America we have a lot of because it's based on a lot of cars, privately owned cars, right? Not the shared vehicles, not the MAS system, right? So in the future, we have a lot of 8-lane highways or 8-lane local roads even, right? So with the reduction of the cars, can we turn it into be a much greener space? So we can have less type of road space, and then turning road space into a green route where people can do the bicycle and also more plantations, right? Okay. Now, so what are the impacts of this smart society? Okay. Obviously, it will make us more convenient and safe in traveling and living. More convenient, right? You just you don't even go to shop, and you just make an order and the goods will be delivered to your house, right? And even food nowadays, right? And obviously it can help through this type of ICT and also different sensors to monitor the environment, for example, to monitor the carbon usage, etc., to make the environment more sustainable, right? It can also create more business now, right? Like the Taobao in China and the Amazon.com in America, etc. Well, you see that actually it generates a lot of sales. In the old days, there are a lot of products you don't know, but through this type of internet shopping, it's just like in the old days where you have this type of mail shopping, right? You send a catalog, right? You can just find anything you want now, which you cannot get from a physical store, right? And so in that case, the economy actually also grows as well, right? And this is a very important component in economic development nowadays. And it will make the government more efficient, right? Like, for example, the crowd sourcing, and everybody is trying to monitor for the government about their own neighborhood, and whether you have crimes or whether you have illegal parking, garbage, etc. More shared economy and travel, right? But obviously at the downside, we may have more social divided, the north-south divided, those who can afford the smart technology and those who cannot. And then we have more income inequality, and particularly people who are engaged in this smart technology will be making more money than those who are not engaged in this smart technology itself, right? And also more employment problems, right? They also have to have a change in terms of employment. We may need less people in certain areas, but on the other hand, we have need more people. Just like in before the COVID-19, we can never thought of that. There are a lot of this type of people delivering goods, food to you, right, using scooters, right? This is now happening everywhere. And more importantly, more data privacy issues. And I think this is basically a lot of debate going on. Now, another very important thing, who is providing and maintaining smart technologies in smart cities? Well, we need to have sensors. It's very expensive. Who is going to pay for it, right? And basically, we are talking about public-private people partnership. This is the traditional model. But on top of that, you have to have profit, the politics, the privacy issues. And so this is a whole bunch of issues that are involved now in smart city building, right? Now, finally, I would like to, for today in this conference, we are talking about challenges that we are going to meet for future urban planning and development. The first of all is basically what is the impact of Transport 4.0 and the new mobility on spatial planning. The locations of economic activities, right? And also the new urban form, right? Related to the new mobility and location of economic activities, job housing balance issues. How do you integrate urban planning and design with smart technologies, and the integrations of urban management with smart technologies and digital twins? And also how to make cities more healthy, green, low carbon, and sustainable using these type of new technologies. And particularly for planning educations, it will really change our way of teaching in planning. And now we can see that students need to learn more skills and more technology. And the time that we are allocating for teaching will be able to give us that extra time for providing that type of training to them. This is a real challenge now to planning educations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ye. I think this was clearly a case where we could start thinking about one type of disruption that is brought up that affects ways of life, but also affects the spatial processes and the way we deal with them. And clearly there's a lot of questions and a lot of challenges. How do we address that? And inequality and inclusiveness is certainly a part of this, as Professor Ye mentioned in his conclusion. So we will leave more for discussion. I would like now to invite 4 of our colleagues to be in the panel. Michele Campagna, University of Cagliari, Angelique Chetty-Paramp, University of Reading, Vavandari, Hadayani, University of Diponegoro, and Yang Sang Lee, Seoul National University. Please go from that end. I will save this one for me. And I would like to ask them first to give their comments and possibly questions, a couple of minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, each of them, on Professor Ye's presentation, but also connecting to some of the key underlying ideas that were charged with by our organizers of the conference. So if you would go in order, maybe we start with Angelique, if you don't mind, from this end. And then I will join in the discussion. We can take some questions from the floor with the mic, for sure, to make sure that everybody's aware of the questions and can hear. I will also follow the chat. If there are questions in the chat, I will do that as well. So we have about, I would say about half an hour or a little bit less maybe to discuss. So let's start perhaps with Angelique and then move on. The mics will change. I think the technical people will.
Hi, It's working, thanks. Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks very much for the very interesting presentation. And as we know, the digital is coming into our lives. We feel it in our universities where we teach, we feel it in where we work, where we live, how we travel, and it's very hard to miss the inroad of technology in our lives. So it's quite an apt topic for today, especially connected to the theme. Given all of the things or all of the erosion of digital technologies in our lives, maybe one of the questions that seem to pose or seem to worry me a little bit is to what extent is political decisions or the role of ideology being sidelined, or is it being converted into a question of digital sources and digital technologies for management, maybe marginalizing a little bit the political role in all of this, the role of ideologies to make the decision. How exactly, what guides which data is to be used, and what guides which questions to ask of that data, and how we prioritize certain questions. So for me, that part is, besides all the challenges in planning education, the need to familiarize ourselves with all the different new technologies. Maybe what is also not, we will also need to do is to reprioritize or sensitize our students to asking more deeper questions of the data and what it implies, where it comes from, and how it how it might support a value-driven ways of planning as well. Yes, and as we know, the role of planet is changing and is continuing to change, and we are incorporating new methods and new sources in our syllabus all the time, especially given the changes that is happening in technology. But I'm not, I'm still wondering whether there is enough of the political discussion and critical insight into those sources. And also Professor Lee asked a very important question of who is actually maintaining the data and who is providing the data, where is it being maintained, and how is it being managed, which is also perhaps something to think about. I'll leave it at that and then come back.
Yes, thank you, Angelique. I just thought maybe because there is a question embedded or implicitly in your comment, perhaps we can have Anthony. Would you like Anthony to respond briefly so we don't accumulate too many issues for you to talk about?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very good question. First of all, it's about, the role of politics in this whole smart city development. We cannot avoid politics, right? Like in America and in also some cities, I was told that in San Francisco it is illegal now for the city government to have CCTV to look at the people, because even if you have a CCTV, somehow you have to blur the face, right? Because they don't want to be monitored, right? So this is also what the technology enable you to do that, but people do not want to do that, right? And so this is one very important issue. The other one is about the privacy, about the mobile phone data, right? Actually, I think everybody knows, and there's nothing free in the world. If you are using Google, you're using Microsoft, and using cloud, using Gmail, all your data are actually managed by the company, and they sell your data because of this type of what is known as target marketing, right? And this is well known, right? But the unfortunate part is we trust the company more than the government, right? Whenever the government is trying to say, like COVID-19 and trying to monitor people's locations, etc. No, we cannot do that, right? Because I don't want to sacrifice my privacy. It's just like electronic road pricing, right? And now electronic road pricing, you don't have any human, information in it, right? And one of the problems with road pricing, particularly 20 years or 30 years ago in Hong Kong, is about the data privacy issue. So we cannot avoid politics. But the whole thing is, it all depends on the trust of the government, of the people on the government. We trust Google, we trust Gmail, we trust Twitter, we trust WhatsApp, but we never trust the government. And that is also one of the things. But anyway, we have to live in reality. Politics is reality. Now, the other one is about the maintenance of the data. Well, obviously, the public-private partnership is obviously one of it. But the government also have to have a role. The role of the government of this is trying to have what is known as a data standard, trying to make sure that people can communicate. Otherwise, they will be very fragmented. Right? Just imagine if we do not have ASCII, right? The American Standard, Computer Information Interface System, right? Everybody company is having their own standard. How can we merge together? So the role of the government for this type of data management or data provision, first of all, some of the data infrastructure you have to provide, just the base map, like for example, the roads, the likes, right? But some of this can be decentralized, for example, through water companies, etc. But one of the most important things of the role of the government is try to standardize them so that different companies can communicate with each other under one common standard. I think it's not only a particular city, but it's also the region, the country, right? And this is always a problem. Even in GIS nowadays, we still do not have to come up with a so-called international standard about that, right? So this is a very important issue, a lot hindering our future development. It's about data standardizations and the provisions of basic, what they call either data infrastructure or basic sensor infrastructure.
Thank you very much. We will proceed with comments with Professor Handayani, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yorika, and thank you also for giving me the opportunity to give some comments or highlight from the very impressive presentation from Professor Ye that already covered, I think, a very convincing arguments to remind all of us that in the future there will be a very big improvement in the technology, mainly in the communication and transportation, and in a way it will change the spatial configuration in our globalized world. And I think one message has been sent that also access to the data is very important. And I think it's not only in Indonesia, but I believe other countries also have the same issues related to how we can optimize the use of big data in our planning process to produce good planning documents. But I would like to add another concern on the topic. First is, I think we need also to be aware that the development of technology, the way we need to improve or to operationalize the smart city concept is not only can be applied in big cities. I believe it's also very important that the technology development cannot or not create a more disparity among regions, among cities, because maybe some cities has the capacity to access and to utilize such technology. But I think in our globalized world, we also have our medium, small cities with maybe limited capacity. And I believe this kind of smart city application should be also adapt or could be operationalized in different setting of regions, in different setting of cities. I just came up with the ideas when I following the Professor Ye presentation. And secondly, I think it's also important for me in this opportunity to also remind all of us that we need to be able to use the smart city concept to improve the adaptive capacity in addressing various disturbances. mainly because of the climate change, mainly to improve our resiliency in addressing various emerging disasters, because I believe in the very rapid urbanization, most cities already experience also a lot of various disasters, and how we combine our local wisdom in the globalized world with the new modern technology is also very important to improve the resiliency and to improve our preparedness in dealing with a lot of disturbance to create a more livable, more sustainable regions in the future. And I think it is our job, as a planning school, to educate our students to be prepared with this kind of situation, to not only work out of the box, but in the no-box situation. I think I will stop here, and maybe, Prof. Ye, it will be grateful if you also can provide us some highlights on the topic. Thank you, Zorika.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very good question as well. I think first of all, data availability. This is always a problem in planning, right? So a lot of the data actually is not owned by the government. Like, for example, this mobile phone data, which is very useful for spatial planning, right? And so basically, I think there must be a law saying that if the government wants this type of spatial data, the telephone company need to give it to them. But this is very controversial, right? Because when they are signing a contract with the people using their services, they say that, well, we cannot use for other purposes. But data availability, even for example, I understand maybe in some southern countries, they don't even have a GIS in some rural areas, right? And so this is a real problem. And so this actually also can come back with the spatial inequality issue being raised. It is true, right? In certain areas, like mountainous areas, villages, they don't have a GIS, and they don't even have 4G and 5G. And so a lot of this technology we are talking about can only be enjoyed and also applied to large cities, right? Where you have this type of ICT infrastructure, right? But anyway, for the plan out, I think we can still use our modeling technology. We can get the data to try to help them to do better planning, so that, for example, avoid this type of disturbance to the environment, right? And talking about resilience, obviously, smart technology have a big role to play, right? For example, the monitoring of climatic change, the monitoring of heat island effect. Well, I don't think we can do it in the past with the, we cannot do it without the current technology, right? And nowadays, you can monitor heat island using satellite images and maybe sensors, etc., water level, etc. And so this can give us some sort of early warning system. And also through the better modeling, we are able also now to provide better type of resilience, right, to plan for it, right? The one thing that I always remind my students, we can never be the slave of technology. We would like to be the master of them.
Thank you very much, Anthony. We'll move on with another comment from Professor Lee.
Yeah. Thank you for your interesting special lecture. And that is one thing that I want to mention relating to the Professor Ye's lecture. My point is that we should think about some possibility that probably in the future, the congestion can be more severe, which is because of the advance of technology. Many people and planning experts says that we do not need this kind of huge road, and we do not need the parking area. But if technology advances more in the future, there is a possibility that we should face more cars, more parking space in the future. The reason that I mentioned this possibility is that, for example, in the case of the electric car, in the case of the battery for electric car, the cost currently is just 1/10 of the 2010. So if technology is developed in this speed, how about the 2030? So I mean, the price of electric car will go down very fast. And furthermore, we should think of in the world of autonomous car. It means aged people, for example, above 80, can enjoy mobility service. And disabled people also can enjoy the mobility service, or people who cannot use car because they don't get driver's license. For example, the young aged people also can enjoy mobility service in the age of the autonomous car. So think about that. The electric car, the cost of electric car goes down fast. And because of the wide spread of autonomous car, more and more people can use mobility service. That means we should think of some possibility. More and more cars runs through the roads, and probably we may need more and more parking space. So we should think about the future challenge for planners if the cost of electric car goes down, if autonomous car is widespread. How should we cope with such challenge in, for example, 2030 or 2040? That can be a very serious challenge for planners, and we should ready for the future challenge. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. These are very good questions. This is always in my mind. I don't think urban planning can provide the solutions that you mentioned. It is impossible. You need to be accompanied by public policy. For example, whether we would like to have a TOD, transit-oriented development, whether we want to have a public policy of no cars, right? Just like in, Seoul, where you're using it, right? And basically, just like in a lot of cities like Singapore or Hong Kong, we have 90% people using public transport. So this is the type of public policy that you need. That's just providing more roads, and no matter what you do, you are not going to solve congestion problem. You know that. You have to use transport management policy. Now, but on the other hand, how can we as a planner help? Right? Obviously, you will try to plan communities that are self-sustained, that we have to deal with job housing balance, not at the city level, but at the community level. And now with the home-based working or working in a co-working space or hot desking, you are able now to decentralize some of the jobs, particularly in producer services, right? Particularly in service, but not the personal services, not the type of manufacturing, right? So you can somehow do it work from home or work outside the CBD to reduce the congestion. So congestions is never be able to solve by planning. It has to be solved by public policy, together working with planning in terms of promoting of new urbanisms, where people work and live in the same place.
Thank you. We'll move with Professor Michele Campagna.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank Professor Ye, not only for his presentation, for being with us today and for his presentation today, but also for all his work in the last decades, which I'm following since I was a PhD student back 20, 30 years ago. And also today you gave us a fantastic comprehensive synthesis of what is happening in the development of smart cities. And you perfectly explain how to understand and to manage complex urban systems. I would like to ask you what happens when we change scale and we go to a smaller scale and we study and we plan the interaction between complex urban systems, no matter how big and complex they are, with the surrounding territory in the larger region. And this is a more general question. And then you mentioned at the end of your talk two important aspects. One is to use technology for planning and design, and also education for future planners. So I think you touched less in your presentation this point, and I would like to ask you to develop a little bit more on that, and kind of provocative question here today, do we still need plans as we used to do in the past? And is the plan, the future plan, thanks to the technology innovation, changing format or changing shape?
Oh, thank you. This is also good questions about scale, about the planning, and also about education, right? First of all, about the scale. Obviously, when we're talking about planning, just now I replied, Professor Lee, is that basically we have to deal with not the so-called big scale, but we also have to deal with the neighborhood scale. It's very important. If we want to have a sustainable development, right, it's not only talking about the big cities, but also talking about small communities. We will have to build up from there, right? Talking about the use of these smart technologies in planning and design, obviously now with the BIM, with the GIS, and we have a more spatial tool that we can work right, from not only from the cities, the spatial scale, but now it's a 3D now, right? So this is a particularly very useful for high-density cities, like maybe in Jakarta or Tokyo, New York, etc. Right? So these are some of the things that is going to do for us, and a lot of this work on about AI. How do we do different type of indexes, which we cannot do in the past, can be done there. Now, let's talk about planning education. Now, this is what we are experiencing. Now, in the BIM, right? How much BIM do you need to teach the students? How much modeling you have to teach students? How about AI? How much AI you have to teach students? Do they need to know how to create a web page, do this type of communications? So these are all extra time for the students, right? So this is a real challenge, right? And so in our university, actually, we are offering some specialism program for people who actually have already got a degree in urban planning. Because in urban planning, although we are a 2-year program, but it's still not enough. And so we are having a program called Master Degree in Urban Analytics, trying to train students or urban managers really how to analyze the data. There's nothing more, right? Provided they have the knowledge about that in planning and spatial science. The other one is called Master Degree in Healthy Cities, right? And so, as we mentioned, a healthy city is very important, particularly you can see the COVID-19, and we see that, city, the built environment actually affects the health of the people, right? And so these are the things and that we will be doing, right? And so I hope I answered your questions.
Thank you very much. I would like to take one question from the chat, so we make sure at least we have some opportunities from outside the panel, and then we'll go back to the panel. We have a question about from Yuan Lai from Changhua University, wondering when urban planning moves forward with more computation and data science, how such transformation will change the planning implementation process, especially the planning intervention in digital instead of physical aspects of the cities. So moving forward, trying to envision the next step, not just planning and dealing with technological change within cities, but also implementation and trying actually to predict and deal with the way that the cities will be, and how do we guide them with the technology in place.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of our technology, we may have the technology a long time ago, right, with the work of Professor Michael Barry and others, right, about urban modeling. But at this time, one of the two very important things that's lacking, one is the GIS data, right? And now GIS data is no longer a constraint, right? The other one is about this type of mobility data, about, because, planning is also about land use transport, right? And so in the past, we do not know very exactly, and so we have to do this type of traffic survey and etc. But now with this type of big data, you can see in the last 10 years, a lot of people are doing this type of work, try to make use of big data and to input it into the model to provide us with this type of simulations, which is more accurate than before. Right? So I think this is one of the major changes in our field. Not so much in terms of modeling, because I think we know the modeling a long time ago. But now is the availability of data and also standardized data through the effort of the government and also the public companies. But I think just like what I have response earlier, the availability of big data for planning is still a problem in a lot of countries. Even in America, I can say, right, because of the data privacy issue. Unless the government have a way to ask the companies because of the public interest, right? In that case, you have to somehow process the data and give it to the planning department and for them to do this type of modeling, right? I don't think the AI is just some sort of icing on the cake in the sense that, well, you have the big data, obviously you can use AI to do whatever analysis. The major breakthrough in the smart cities paradigm is the availability of more data that we can use for analyzing and planning for the future cities.
Right, thank you. I just want to note by kind of summarize in one or two sentences what I'm hearing. We do have obviously a challenge in planning coming from various disruptions. Some are technological, some are innovations, but there's also other disruptions that are created by nature or by human activity. So my understanding is that data, obviously, from the technological standpoint, there's a lot of issues, how to maintain it, how to protect privacy, security, and how actually to move it forward so it will be useful in the planning process. So there's still many challenges there. Also, my understandings from Professor Ye's response is that the government and the policy, in addition to planning, not planning itself, but coupled with public policy, would have a big role to play in dealing with technology and the changes that it brings to spatial processes and urban development and planning and design. So there is a role of policy and government, strong role to play. And I'd also like to come back to education that some of us are mentioning here, Vivi, and others. Well, first, there are unexpected consequences. And in education, we're trying to prepare planners for future, how to deal with future, how to invent. I think in the words of Michael Batty, who talked yesterday to PhD students, we're not only predicting, and there's a question how much we can predict, but we're inventing futures in a way through planning process. And that's not bad, actually. It's good that we are creative in that way and kind of guiding the way that we want to see the future. But in education, there's a challenge then. How do we prepare students for this, to being inventive about something that is very often hard to predict? There's these consequences that are hard to envision always in advance, and also our planning is based on prediction, whether it's population or employment, and then based on that might or might not happen, we actually plan. So there's a little bit of not a little of a challenge, and as educators, we actually have to teach our students to understand what is happening and also to deal with that in the process of their planning and how they see the development of cities that they're working in. So in a way, I caught the kind of the phrase from Vivi, it's that adaptability. In a way, we actually have to deal simultaneously with the present as we try to see how it moves toward the future and how we want the future to be. So I don't think our job is easy. I always have sympathy for ourselves, and for planners. So I'd like to kind of go another round and close with the panel with their comments, not yet finished, just 1 minute, their final words about, I'd say, there's few things you can, maybe some of your key thoughts. whether technology is the main disruption, whether there's other disruptions that are the key disruptions, your maybe thoughts on what is a smart cities and how we can manage development in this era. Just one thought that kind of struck you within this discussion today.
Okay, thanks, Richa. I think we are going this way again. So one of the things that struck me when I was listening to my colleagues also speaking was, well, in the UK where I work, nowadays planning application or approval on planning applications is now being driven by AI systems, or there is experimentation taking place in that area where planning authorities are moving into systems that does not require a planner anymore to make a decision on a planning application. So in a way that is taking away jobs from the planner, and which is being substituted by an artificial intelligence system. So I wonder now whether that means that the role of the planner is a once removed, in the sense that they're not directly dealing with those decisions, but they are making the parameters that lead to a decision by the data. So in a way it is what I've called earlier second order planning. They're creating the system that can lead to a decision given a certain set of circumstances rather than making the decision themselves. That again raises, if that's what we are heading towards, and it's not just our profession, as we know, medical doctors are facing the same situation where diagnosis is being given by AI-driven systems. So if we are going in that direction, then we will then need to know, we will definitely need a set of values, because we are going to be designing the system that will give rise to the decision. Even though we are not responsible, we are responsible for the system that does that. We also are leading to an area of planning education that we are, I don't think at the moment, I'm not sure how many of our planning schools are well versed in doing that kind of or equipping our students to that kind of designing. But it certainly seems to be the way that practice is experimenting in at the moment, and something to watch out for, I think, because it is removing some of the traditional tasks of planners, which is now being outsourced to AI-driven systems. So I don't know whether Professor Lee, you would like to comment? Or? No, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I think we need to close, but with the round of panelists, if you want quickly, but that wasn't the plan. So if there's a...
Okay, no, I think you better have the discussions.
Yes. Thank you very much. Vivi, please.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize a little bit that innovation will be very important. So how we invite the students in our curriculum, how they think innovative ways in implementing or promoting some planning solutions is very important. And other thing is that we cannot only focus on the technical issues, but also the governance. And to ensure that all the plan that we create in regard to this smart city, or there's a lot of terms and concepts, could be implemented. So do not focus only in the technical things, but also with the governance, financial, like Professor Ye has mentioned, the PPP, for example, funding options, I think is also another important aspect that need to be further elaborated. Thank you, Zurika.
I think one thing that we should remember is that smartness can solve many problems, but smartness can create another problems. And such problems include more social inequity and the more severe polarization. So in terms of planning education, we should try to enhance student understanding, what kind of solutions there can be possible, and what kind of problems smartness can create. So we should maintain balance between what can we do and what we should do in the future. Thank you.
I think that in the evolution of planning from modern planning to contemporary planning, we saw many approaches, but if we can just super generalize in synthesis, we have an approach where the planner learns to collaborate with experts and scientists from many fields, from biology to geology to archaeology, history. And then another one, when the planner learn and have to challenge, have to face the challenge to work with people. I think now we have the challenge, and this may be a hint for the evolution of the curriculum. The planner need to learn to talk to IT people. When we talk about smart city, we see that the major player most of the time are not the planners, but are engineers, electrical engineers, IT engineers. So, which have no background about cities, about territory, about regions. So we should work to establish an interface, a middleware, to talk with them too. And I think this is a possible direction of investment for integrating our curriculum and to update our curriculum towards the future. And still, technology is an enabler, and we can see and trace back this in the evolution of planning support system. For many years, planning support systems were created in academic laboratories, but not very widespread around. I think things are changing now a little bit because many planners are starting to use the technology for their purpose, not the other way around.
All right, thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank our keynote, Professor Ye, for delivering his interesting presentation and enticing further thoughts from our panel. So I'd like to thank them as well. So thank you. Hopefully we can continue with the conversation during the lunchtime. Unfortunately, I do have the news that Professor Saskia Sassen, due to personal reasons, could not join us today. What we were planning to do as a small backup is to put a video. It's a YouTube video which all of you have access to. It's a public video that is her most recent interview that is 17 minutes long. We will put it on. Again, you can watch also at your own time. Professor Sasken did respond positively to the invitation and was supposed to join us. I'll just say a few words. As some of you or many of you might know, she's a professor, a Robert S. Lynn Professor of Sociology at Columbia University. She published extensively, starting from about 20 years ago, the book Global Cities about Tokyo, London, and what was the third one? And now I forgot. Tokyo, London, and New York, of course, that kind of introduced her to the academic world through a big door, and really legacy of that book and then subsequent books that she wrote about global cities and networks and linkages really contributed significant challenge and in knowledge about how we are rethinking the way that our cities work, particularly with the evolving globalization that was happening over the past 20 plus years. She was supposed to talk about brutality and complexity, the ambiguous world that we live in, It's based on her book that was published in 2014. And again, unfortunately, she couldn't join us. So I am going to close here. We are going to put the video, but we'll close for some people who want to go for lunch. Others can stay and watch here or watch at your own time. And again, I'd like to thank all of you who are here virtually and in person, our participants, guests, everybody who is present to join us in this opening of our World Planning Congress, 5th Congress, after some break and a lot of work that brought us to this point, particularly through the pandemic times. So thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
I met Saskia at her home in New York City. She is a sociology professor at New York's prestigious Columbia University.
I know you've talked a lot about this, but I still see it as a really good launching point. Born in the Netherlands, grew up in Argentina, later Italy, studied in France. We're sitting here in New York. You talk about global cities, but you're a global citizen. Do you think that's the reason why you have such a fascination with it?